Hey everybody, it's Eric from epautos.com, your libertarian car guy. I wanted to touch on something I've been thinking about that has nothing at all to do with cars, or really politics, except in a peripheral sense. It is about something that is essentially religious, and the reason I'm bringing that up is because a religious thing is in the news, meaning what's going on over in the Middle East, and specifically with regard to Israel and the way Israel seems determined to expand itself and crush its enemies. See them driven before you and hear the lamentation of the women. And there's a lot of divide in this country, very sharply binary divide, in that there are people who absolutely support pretty much anything that the state of Israel does. There's a lot of that on the evangelical Christian side, and I'll come back to that in a minute. And then on the other side, there are people who are appalled by it, and of course they are being smeared as anti-Semites for being appalled by, wholesale displacement of populations of women and children who just happen to be in the way, and, men too who are not part of Hamas. This excuse of Hamas is starting to wear out when you're talking about, even if, you condemn what happened back in October. Yeah, it was an awful thing. We're talking about low thousands of people who were killed in that situation, whereas we're now talking about tens of thousands. There's an element of proportionality going on there, but I didn't want to talk about that so much. Lots of people are talking about that. What I wanted to talk about was what you might call Yahweh-ism, and that's sort of a construction of Yahweh, the God of the Old Testament, the God that is revered by people who are religiously Jewish and people who are religiously Christian. That's their Old Testament God. Interesting thing about Yahweh is that he changed things in a way that's rather remarkable, and it's not often discussed. And what do I mean by that? Well, prior to the advent of Yahweh, the ancient world was kind of polytheistic, meaning not so much that a culture had multiple gods, though some did, but it was that each culture, each society kind of accepted that other societies and cultures had their own different gods, and that was fine. They could venerate their gods, we venerate our gods. In a way, it was sort of a religious live and let live kind of a thing. What was unique about Yahweh when he arose, or rather I should say when the religious leaders, the priests of the time who invented him, I know it's going to cause a lot of people to get mad at me, but that's just my view on this, and I think it's supported by the facts. When they confected Yahweh, they insisted that not only was Yahweh their God, he was the God, the only God, and all the other gods not only didn't exist, but were sort of abominations that had to be crushed, and the people who believed in those other gods had to be crushed, and that gave license, imprimatur, if you like, to this sort of narcissistic, psychopathic worldview in which everybody who is in the out group, meaning people who don't subscribe to Yahweh, are not just people who hold a different point of view, but they're the enemy. And because Yahweh says those people are fit to be destroyed, you have the righteous sanction to destroy them. The Old Testament is full of stuff like that, about Yahweh stomping around, or rather the tribe of Israel stomping around the Middle East, eradicating other groups of people who Yahweh doesn't like. It's really quite something. Anyway, so here we are a couple thousand years later, and we're dealing with a phenomenon that's very closely related to it, in that there's this sort of just effronterous, arrogant idea that some people are better than other people, that we're special. We are selected apart, we're anointed, and it's our mission, our holy divine mission, to bring Yahweh and the cult of Yahweh everywhere, and everything else has got to disappear accordingly. Anyway, those are just my thoughts. I think it's a really dangerous thing that this is out there, and it's become so saturated in our culture too that it almost goes without comment. So I thought I'd comment about it. More over at epautos.com, the web's best libertarian gearhead site. Thanks as always for listening, and we will have more for you again soon.